Welcome to Culture Couch Live, number 2 for the year, boys. So welcome. G'day, Murph. G'day, Woz. G'day, Em.
Rizzy.
Rizzy.
Hi, mate.
Everybody.
Where are you, Rizzy?
I'm actually in 14-day quarantine in Sydney. So this is day 4, I think it is. I was hoping it was longer, but gee, we might have to do a Culture Couch Live just on quarantine and we can actually get a few guests that have been through it as well and have a good discussion on it.
Get Djokovic in?
Well, I think the tennis players are out today, aren't they, or yesterday?
Only some of them. Apparently, they're in for an extra day than they thought they were, so they're not very happy. Some of them, apparently.
Yeah, hasn't that been a well-oiled machine? That anyway. That's another conversation. All right, boys, let's get straight into the question for 2021. This question's from Brett. I've just joined an executive team, and I'm really struggling being challenged in my area of expertise. A little bit different to what we've sort of had before, but yeah. It sort of does come up a little bit regularly. Probably I'll start probably the thing that surprised me, Murph, you know this because we've spoken about it a lot, is this notion of team. It's really fascinating, isn't it? And often as transactional sort of leaders, as we go up the org chart, we're still very transactional, aren't we? So that's probably the first thing I would say is, I guess, letting go. Brett, let go of that transactional nature. And you've really got to step out of it at times and say, well, I am part of the team.
Yeah.
And that's probably their first biggest challenge, isn't it? Often they haven't been part of a team for so long and they're so transactional. My first piece of advice, Murph, before I'll hand to you, is you do have to shift from individual to team. It's a relatively simple concept, but we do see it a lot, don't we, Murph? Yeah. It's one of the things we're talking a lot about in our workshops, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So as an expert leader of your department, Brett, you need to let go, mate. It's really important that you and the rest of the team take an enterprise perspective of the business and not a divisional perspective. And so on that basis, you can then assist the others, give them ideas, ask questions. So just because someone asks you a question doesn't mean to say they doubt your capacity.
Yeah.
What it actually means is that they want to know more, so therefore they can help you. And then if we all then start to support each other in that, the business will become stronger. So there should never be any problem, whether it's staff or business related, that shouldn't be safe to be put on the table for the executive team. So, Brett, I'm sorry, mate, I'm not on your side here.
It's interesting too, Woz, and I'll throw to you for this next one. A lot of it is not a offensive question. It's just a question based on what are you doing, Woz? Like if you're in the marketing department or whatever. But it can be seen as being challenging, can't it, to Murph's point? But it's just really asking a question. And we talk about that a lot as a leader. Ask questions and then listen. But that can drive that often the wall that goes straight up, isn't it? It's that question that almost starts the conflict, isn't it?
Yeah. This is actually one of the most common things happening to me inside Medicom Labs, because I'm not an expert, but I'm not asking questions of my experts because I'm trying to challenge them. I'm trying to find out more, because sometimes if you're an expert, you might think laterally. Yeah. So if you're asking questions, you might come up with an answer or a way of doing it that might be different to what you had considered before. So being ignorant of the question of attack is just stupid. And I just think, I'm trying to understand the energy of why the question's being asked.
Yeah.
And then you might get the context as to why it's being asked and move on from it.
Yeah. And that's why, that notion of psychological safety is important, isn't it? Because when we're walking in a room, we shouldn't have the wall up immediately, and then the second wall goes up, to Woz's point, with the question. So you've got 2 walls to overcome before you get to the outcome. So talk through the importance of that psychological safety, creating that team so we can have just some really easy conversations that flow naturally, and they don't start from a real defensive point.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that came up is for me is around that real talk piece around trust the intent. Trust the intent of the question being, I'm curious, I'd like to learn about your area. So being a high yellow, I look at it as an opportunity for Brett to educate, you know, as he's asking. And again, to your point it's very true. Experts know a whole lot about what won't work. and they can get quite close-minded because that won't work. And in actual fact, someone with a crazy question like the questions I like to ask sometimes opens up a different part of the brain to go, oh, geez, I never thought about it that way. And 100%. Essentially, that's what innovation is, making something that exists better. And if you don't trust the intent, then how do you see the opportunity? And the best story I remember about this is when BHP dropped that oil in the Gulf of Mexico, I think it was, and put a worldwide patent out to figure out how to get the oil out of the water. And all these other engineering oil companies tried to win this bid. And it was, I think, a company from like Southwest America. It was a concreting company. And they had a solvent that put in the water, and the oil turned to like this rubbery material. And they craned out the oil, which turned into this concretey type of substance, because they were like, oh, for them, it was kind of like commonsensical, but none of the engineering companies that were experts in that space ever got anywhere near it. So that's a good example, I think, of, I reckon it's a great opportunity to grow as an individual and be part of a great team.
I think also, I'll just finish off on this and maybe just get each of your comments. That's why relationships are becoming so important, aren't they? Because we as a group, you know, we've just come off a meeting as well, and we challenge each other, but we do it because we know each other really well. I don't think, Murph, companies take enough time in the relationship building around the team, so we have genuine care for each other. So the starting point is care, and then we go into the questioning.
Yeah, and it's mainly built around time. That's the truth about it. And so it's about taking the time out to build relationships. I think if we take the time, then the relationships will develop, but relationships can't develop without time. And we get busy, we get caught up at work, and we've got emails and we've got meetings and we've got things to do. So we get caught in the technical side of the business. But take the time to build relationships, and that will absolutely enhance, number one, the conversation, but more importantly, the safety, the psychological safety we keep talking about.
And I remember your Frothy Fridays as just a little example of that as the CEO. And I remember watching them going, that's pretty cool. You know, so that, to Murph's point, and I think you got into the habit of doing that every Friday, just to send a message. And that's pretty well a real practical example of what Murph's talking about, but taking the time to do it.
Yeah, I think it just comes back to really valid in the fact that if you haven't built the relationships to have real talk, then a lot of times the questions will be deemed confrontational. Real talk is just being able to ask a question to get a simple answer without the person feeling intimidated that it's a personal attack. So I think that without having real talk as your fundamental thing that you can lean into in terms of energy, you're really going to struggle as a company to be successful.
And Em, I know you're huge on relationships, and you do a lot of work with those exec teams around relationships, don't you?
You're on mute, mate.
Yeah, I was just Rio in the background started screaming at the TV. I think fundamentally the root of the problem is actually the onboarding. We bring people in and we just throw them straight into, and we get straight into the doing of stuff and don't go, right, how are we bringing Jane and John or whoever it might be into the team?
Yeah.
What are we doing to build that trust and safety? You know, and that looks different to every company, but so many people just get them straight in. And when you dissect the really great companies like your Flight Centres and with great cultures, you look at their onboarding, a lot of it's a 6-week period before they even pick up the tools, you know? So that's where I think the root of the issue is. Because like you say, it's not easy to have a robust real talk, dive into questions when you're just meeting people for the first time.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a good point, because we've done a couple of sessions, Murph had me, where I think for the first time they'd ever met each other, a couple of people in the group, was in the sessions that we had actually done. So it's a great point. All right, boys, I know you guys are heading into the weekend, so I'm looking forward to my weekend.
Go hang out the corner.
Yeah, well, I
Couple
might
of
just go.
questions. Couple of
Just going to go
questions
for
for
a
you.
walk down the hallway, walk back, walk down the hallway, walk back.
A couple of questions for you, Reezy, before you go. Is that a new interview technique where you ask a question and answer it yourself?
The first part of it was, yeah. I just thought that gives you an idea of where I am mentally in lockdown.
And the second thing is, what did you do to your fingernail? I noticed you got a black fingernail there.
That's been there for a while, actually. Probably I got really good self-awareness. I'm not often on the tools, and that's why, because when I am on the tools, those sort of things happen. Part of being a good leader, Murph, good self-awareness.
Mate, you take good care of yourself over the weekend, all right?
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend,
Thanks,
boys.
guys.
Thanks very
Well
much
done.
for the culture couch.
See you, boys.